right now. We're back.
Welcome in live now inside Bridgestone as we start to wrap things up here. Just coming out of the locker room, storming outside. We hope everyone's safe back home. Storming here as well. So the nice folks at the SEC have allowed us to jump inside here and wrap things up here today. Taylor Corn, Jim Dunaway, this is the basketball show. We're about to talk about both games today that had Auburn losing to Tennessee and Florida beating Alabama pretty handily in what ended up being the highest scoring SEC tournament game of all time, where there was a lot of points scored. We'll get more into that in a second. But first, let me tell you that the fine folks at VulcanTireandAuto.com, our friends at Vulcan Tire and Automotive, are here to help you throughout March Madness. They can get your car ready to go, not just in March, but for April and all the fun travel in summer. A dead battery will not get you there before your next road trip this winter and this spring. Take your vehicle right there to Vulcan Tire and Automotive, locations all over town. Get the details at VulcanTireandAuto.com and mention the next round. Get the best tire pricing in town, guaranteed, and 15% off any and all mechanical services. 15% off when you say next round. Let's go backwards. Let's go Alabama first, and we'll work our way to Auburn and what happened earlier. Most recent game here. 47-45 at the half. Very entertaining basketball game. Florida led by 2. And in fact, Ken Pomeroy tweeted out after the under 8 timeout that the first 10 minutes of the game was the highest scoring D1 basketball game since 2019, when Houston Baptist and Incarnate Word put up 61 points in a 10-minute span. Alabama and Florida put up 62, and it was really entertaining in the first half. And then if you're an Alabama fan, second half wasn't good, as you had a Grant Nelson injury that he didn't come back and play in the second half, and you had Florida not missing shots.
Yeah, well, we talked about this last night. Walter Clayton Jr. is so good. He's so good.
Could be playing best basketball in the country right now, any player.
Yes, and we talked about, Dunaway brought up the point that if he had been playing like this from day one, he would be in the conversation alongside Janai Broome, Cooper Flagg for National Player of the Year. And he is, he's incredible. And I enjoy watching him play.
Smooth shot.
He's elite. Yes, his 3-point shot is flawless. And it is, it's hard to beat a team that is that efficient offensively. And it's defense. Alabama, there were some guys that had some rough shooting nights, but defense, it's back, and there had been improvement, but I feel like the second half was they couldn't stop them. They had no answer.
And that's 2 games now against Florida, and you go back to last year, the SEC tournament here, it was Florida that bounced Alabama. So there's a little bit of a Florida problem right now. In order to see Florida again, you'd have to do a lot of great stuff in the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about that in a second, but to your point, 51% from the floor, 44% from 3-point range is what Florida shot in this game, and they got after Alabama really well shooting the basketball. My first big takeaway coming out of the locker room, I want to share that with you guys before we get to the comment, and Taylor, you're in there with me. Sort of a lot like we experienced with Auburn earlier. Trying to turn the page is hard to do immediately after a loss, but it became a very big thing to do for these players at Alabama. Hey, we've got to forget about this one, regroup. But it was different in the Alabama locker room than the Auburn locker room, because Jaron Stevenson even talked to us about maybe, and we'll give that sound to you guys later on, but maybe we need to have a little players only meeting, start trying to hold people accountable on the defensive end and doing things a little bit better, the small things. And maybe this isn't coach anymore. Maybe we need to challenge ourselves to do this.
Yeah, and the fact that you have such a young guy stepping up, and Mark was in the big press conference with Nate Oates and Chris Youngblood, so he wasn't in there, but hearing from a younger guy, he was being vocal about that. He was talking to us. He knew that we had a camera and a microphone, and his teammates were around him. So I think that says a lot about him as a player to me. And I'm sure it's frustrating if you're noticing things as a teammate, repeatedly. You have repeat offenders of this mistake or that mistake that, I probably wouldn't notice sitting here watching the game, But the thing that I think you have to keep in mind is the goal of every team, the goal of both Auburn and Alabama is to win a national championship. And nothing that happened today has put a roadblock in front of them. You know, that, I mean, potentially seeding, whatever. But that's still on the table. That's not off the table. So, I mean, yeah, no one ever likes to lose. But that was a very interesting comment to me. And I really had two takeaways from it, because I think my first takeaway was when we watched, I was very impressed with Jaron, just the way that he carried himself, the way that he spoke. And second, I wonder what would be said. I wonder what his frustration is, or I don't know if frustration is the right word, but if he thinks that they need to have a players only meeting, I'm wondering what he thinks the main topic of conversation needs to be.
Yeah. No, me too. I'd love to be in that meeting there, but you get the feeling that in order for players to be saying that, the coaches probably challenge them to, hey, we lay out game plans for you. You guys have to execute it. And maybe y'all need to start holding each other accountable a little bit. Alabama did not shoot the ball well today. And it starts much like with the Auburn game earlier. Your guards and Phylon didn't score until very late in the contest when it was already decided. And it's something that will be addressed. Let's do Grant Nelson, and then we'll get to the comments for you guys, and we'll get to Auburn as well. The Grant Nelson injury. Everyone I've talked to, there's no stoppage of play. He went out limping after a timeout and went straight to the locker room. And there's been no real update on him, except from what we have been able to gather in the locker room. And the players seem to think he'll be back. At least that's the players' feeling.
I've got the same feeling.
Yeah. So that's the feeling. Now, is that back, the first game? Is it back the second game? Is it back the second weekend? Is it back if they make it to the Final Four? We'll get all the details as the rehab process and the coaches get to that. But your comments in the chat room brought to you by our friends at Vulcan Tire and Auto.com, Vulcan Tire and Auto.com. Don't forget 15% off tires and all your mechanical services for your car and truck. Go by there and check it out. Let's do Auburn as we head to the comments here. The first game of the day, a lot more entertaining basketball game because it was more competitive. But you had another situation where I think 1 of 14 between Denver Jones and Tahad Pettiford, they didn't shoot the ball well today at all.
No, they didn't. And Tahad, if you haven't seen it, we sent it out, I guess, right after the Alabama game started. He owned it. He owned it. And, you asked him a question and you weren't saying, you're shooting. But he came out and he said, I didn't help the team today. He said, I didn't show up. I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to get in the gym and I'm going to have to figure out what I need to do to help my team win. I don't expect that to be a reoccurring or not habit, something that we see reoccurring from Tahad. The more concerning thing to me was the amount of free throws that they missed.
Yeah, that was alarming at one point. Yeah.
And Janai,
what was it, 12? Something like that, top of my head. They missed a ton.
I think I can look right here. They They were 13 of 22.
Yeah,
so they missed
9.
Yeah. And Janai missed his first 4. The first half, he missed all 4 of his, or I believe he took 4 in the first half and he missed all of them. So that's concerning. And especially when you're putting them on the free throw line as much as they were tonight or this afternoon, you have to hit yours. You're giving them a lot of opportunities, and they shot 92.6% from the free throw line. They only missed 2 free throws. They 25 of their points came from the free throw line. So I think it's a combination of both. You need to make free throws when you have the chance. That is a free point, and you can't foul that much.
That's right.
I think there were some questionable calls on both sides of the court. The officiating was not blaming the loss on that, but you have to adapt. You have to adapt, and you have to take advantage of those opportunities. But I didn't think Auburn played bad. I think that there were things that could have been cleaned up, but big picture, I don't walk away from that saying, oh my gosh, what is wrong with Auburn?
Yeah, well, Janai played really, really well, as he always does. It was the shooting of Denver Jones and Pettiford. If they shoot like they normally do, it's probably a different outcome. but in the locker room talking to the players. You've sent some of that sound bite out. Give us a feel of what the locker room was before we let the people talk.
I thought that Chad Baker Mazzara's not energy, but he seemed to feel very confident about the future of this team.
Yeah.
He said, you can't, I can't remember what the exact quote was, but he was basically saying, maybe this will have some sort of good impact on our future. Maybe this will re-energize us. He didn't use the word re-energize. I'm abbreviating what he said here, but he basically said, maybe this will end up being something good that happened. There will be a good outcome from this. And I know that I don't necessarily agree with the you need to lose theory, but I do think that when you lose, it is a little bit of a reality check. It humbles you, and maybe both of these teams, when they get back home to their respective campuses, they're going to be a little more motivated to work harder at practice and preparation because they've seen that they can be beat.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time this season.
And one thing is true now. Your next loss ends the season.
Right. That just made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I mean, you lose again, it's over.
Right. So, but I thought that their spirits, I didn't think that their spirits were bad. They were obviously disappointed, didn't want to lose the game by any means, but I think that they are in the same mindset that they need to be in. Can't change that. Now let's move forward and let's get as prepared as we can for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Jake may be on to something with us anyway. He says, Florida right now, my national championship
They're
pick.
so good.
Yeah. Well, here they're better defensively than they were last year. I think they're top 10 in the country. Is that possible? In defense?
I can look.
Maybe top 20. They're one of the best offensive teams. They've got great guards with depth. They got great inside play.
Florida's
with depth.
7th.
Huh?
7th.
So they're now 7th in the country in defense, and their offense is what?
3.
So that's
behind Auburn, Duke, and then Florida.
Yeah. So they've got it all. So Jake, I'm with you right now. We get our bracket selection Sunday tomorrow. At one point this year, there was no way I wouldn't have Auburn winning it all. Now I don't think there's any way, no matter who they play, that I don't have Florida winning it all. Florida will be my pick.
I think that Florida will be a lot of people's picks,
Yeah.
and respectfully so. I don't think that there's a very good argument against it at this point because they are the SEC team that I think is playing the best basketball consistently right now.
Charlie says, why does Florida have our numbers so damn well? If you're an Alabama fan, they do right now. There's a Florida problem. And I think part of it is what we were talking about here. They're good offensively, they're good defensively, and right now Alabama can't hold up their defensive end of the court.
Yeah, and we've seen at times progress in terms of Alabama defensively. But the thing is it's not consistent enough for them to have an off shooting night when you're playing a team like Florida. Some nights you'll be able to get away with an average, whatever your respective averages are, a little below that shooting night, not be playing incredible defense. Like there are only, according to KenPom, there are only 2 offenses in the country that are more efficient than Florida. So their offense is incredible. So when your defense isn't solid to begin with, and then you don't have a great defensive night, and then your shots aren't falling, that's just not, that's not.
Yeah.
Alabama can't rely on their defense to win them a game right now.
Well, I know there's a lot of points. I thought their defense played good enough at Auburn to win that game, right? So
yeah, I mean they won.
Yeah. So I mean, that defense plays good enough sometimes.
But they're also putting up 90 points a game.
Yeah.
So is what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah. And they need to do that, and they struggled to do that today. 90 wouldn't have been enough. They needed to put up 190 in this one. Here's the big concern for me. I agree with Daniel. Much more concerned about Grant Nelson than Alabama winning the SEC. Glad they can rest now. That said, they looked absolutely terrible in the second half. The rest part, not that. Once you play on Saturday, it's one more game. You do get that rest, so that's one thing. But Grant Nelson's health becomes a very big thing there for me. We continue the comments brought to you by our friends at Vulcan Tire and Auto.com, VulcanTireandAuto.com. You see their logo in the corner. They got locations everywhere. Make sure that you stop by, not only for oil changes and oil, lube, and tire changes. They'll handle everything, any mechanical problems. It's in the name with the tires, obviously. And if you mention next round, you get 15% off. You get 15% off with our friends there at Vulcan Tire and Automotive. All the locations around Birmingham. Go online to VulcanTireandAuto.com to check it all out. AU Clay says Auburn fouled their way to a loss. 27 free throws and 37% of the Vols' points came from the charity stripe today.
Yeah, and they didn't take advantage of their opportunities to make nine free throws. So yeah, I mean that's why I don't walk away from that game feeling super, super concerned, because I don't think that's a hard fix, relatively speaking.
I agree.
Like that's not a major issue. They need to play defense without fouling, and we've seen them do it a number of times this year. It's just something that needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that really hasn't been their norm all year long. Today was different, and they play. And Auburn plays Tennessee differently. You know, whether it's 53-51, 46-44 up in Knoxville, they played some weird games. They played some scoring games today, like this one. Tennessee's just one of those teams that drags you into the mud with them, and they play a certain style. And oftentimes, if you get the right officiating crew, it'll be a lot of fouls called. If you get the wrong officiating crew, it'll be a bloodbath.
Right.
So it can go either way. Like there were not a lot of fouls called in the 53-51 game down at Neville Arena.
Yeah, that game was painful to watch.
But it was like a boxing match down there. So that's a matchup, and that's one thing to watch. Yeah, thank you. We're back. The fireworks. All we need now is somebody to crash their scooter. Here's the thing, though. Now it's watch the draw tomorrow, and then do you see anybody that plays really good defense, like drags you into the mud like Tennessee? Well, that could be a problem if you're Auburn. If there's somebody that plays like Buzz Peterson in Texas A&M. If you're Alabama, if you got somebody that plays good defense, Buzz Williams. I'm sorry. If you got somebody that plays like Florida plays, somebody that's got Alabama's number, you want to see. If you're Alabama, you want to see somebody like Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Texas on your line. If you're Auburn, you've beaten up so many teams, you just don't want to see somebody like Buzz Williams and Texas A&M on your line.
Yeah, can I just be a sunshine pumper for everyone for a second?
Absolutely.
Because I think this is something that needs to be remembered and thought about. The teams that have beaten both Auburn and Alabama I'm just going to talk conference play right now, have elite personnel. How many teams outside of the teams that played in this tournament, outside of the teams in the SEC, have the personnel to be able to execute the style of play for 40 minutes that the teams that Auburn and Alabama have lost to have? Because there aren't many.
No.
And that's why I'm trying to bring confidence to both fan bases and both of these teams, because everyone that they're playing is really freaking good.
Yeah, I really do believe what you're saying is there's only 5 or 6 teams that can beat Alabama, 5 or 6 teams that can beat Auburn in the country.
Yeah, unless they just go out there and have a total come apart. But yes, and the way that, Florida has Alabama's number, but how many teams have the personnel to be able to effectively run the game plan that Florida runs in order to beat Alabama? None.
I don't
Florida.
think anybody has Florida's roster. I agree with you.
So just keep that in mind.
Michael says Aiden and Stevenson were the only ones showing energy at the end of that game there.
I wrote a note. I wrote that down, and I said I thought that Phylon, which I don't know if this was at the very end of the game. It was just a couple minutes left, but I made note of that. I said that I thought they showed a lot of fight, and they were playing they weren't looking at the scoreboard, which I like to see.
Yeah. Michael says from the post game, it's a knee injury, but maybe not an ACL. The severity is still unknown. They'll do a little bit more of stuff when they get back. Zach says 1 bazillion% never want to see Florida again.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does.
At least not this year's team, for sure. And what's really crazy, it wasn't a great Alex Condon Day today, and they still were a dominant team. A few more of these. Give me a thought on Auburn. Just give me a thought on a Selection Sunday. Here, something you're expecting to see in the bracket. I'll ask you while I search for more comments. Let's go first with Alabama, locked into a 2 seed. Discussion of a 1 seed is over. They can't fall from a 2. That's good. Now tell me about Auburn and the number 1 overall seed. If we asked the question, what were the players saying? What do you think?
The players, both Denver and Chad, said, I think that we've earned it. Our resume deserves for us to be the number 1 overall seed. And I agree with them. And Chad, actually, the last comment that he made when he was responding to the question is something that I think a lot of people are losing sight of. And he said, just because we had a little stretch at the end of the season that wasn't great doesn't mean that everything else we did this season doesn't matter anymore. And I think that there's going to be some, recency bias, and that's the last taste. The last 4 games, losing their last 3 of their last 4 games is the last taste that people have. But they look at the season as a whole. Like, the selection committee is going to look at the season, as a whole, and what they did in its entirety, in the season's entirety. I mean, yeah, I believe that they deserve to be the number one overall seed.
NH3425 says Auburn needs the bench to start contributing more. Chaney Johnson in particular, according to him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that there were a lot of bunnies. There were a lot of layups that we've seen fall from Chaney when he was on that little hot streak of playing extremely well. And those easy shots just aren't falling. The ones you're like, you got to have those. Those are just shots that you can't miss. They're not necessarily difficult shots, but, they're just rolling around the rim and they fall out. And you're not always going to get an offensive rebound. So those, I agree with that. And someone, I can't remember who I was listening to, but I heard someone talking about the fact that it seemed like Chaney, when he was shining the most, was when Janai was out hurt. And their speculation was that it's like he almost puts himself in the back seat when Janai's healthy and feels like he needs to be, his sidekick and isn't playing with the
same aggression,
right?
Same freedom.
It's like he stepped up because they don't need him. We don't need you to step up right now. Janai's healthy. So it's like, I don't know if it's a mental thing. And this was just the opinion of someone speaking about Auburn. And I do kind of agree, because that was when we were like, oh my gosh, Chaney's really good. And that's not to say that he can't get back to playing the way that he was, but I do wonder if it's sort of a mental thing where he's like, okay, we have Janai.
Yep. Nope. Can't disagree with you there. When sometimes it's Janai's team, and I can't be the alpha on Janai's team. Makes a good point. Andrew says Alabama needs to take care of the ball better to beat a really good team. They do get stupidly careless with the basketball sometimes, something Nate has talked about so many more times this year, to where he's blue in the face about it. Aaron, Florida's the real deal. 1 and 9 are gamers. 1 through 9 are gamers.
Also, Florida's number 2 in KenPom now. I didn't mention that earlier when we were looking at their defensive efficiency.
They're ahead of Auburn?
Correct.
So it's Duke, Florida.
Houston, Auburn. Auburn's 4 now.
I wonder if the metrics ends up impacting the number 1 overall seed or not.
I mean,
I know they don't look at KenPom, but
I don't know. I wouldn't think so, but I don't think that because Auburn dropped a spot in KenPom, they're going to bump them down a seed line.
No. I'm just saying not a seed line, but
to the number 2 overall seed.
But as we said, the number 1 overall seed doesn't really matter, because Duke will choose going through the Newark region, and Auburn will at that point be placed in the Lexington, Atlanta. So you'll still get the same path and everything. All right, we're starting to wind it down. Before we do our final thoughts here, VulcanTireandAuto.com, VulcanTireandAuto.com. Taylor wanted to have a little fun in this one. It's hard to do after a couple of losses.
Yeah, I came into this trying to have a really good time.
But feel free. But we've got, I didn't know they did this. They're actually practicing putting the stage up for the celebration tomorrow when they hand out a trophy. the SEC officials, the team has rolled this out and set this stage up twice now.
Yeah.
Timing it, making sure they can get it done in a certain time.
Yeah, they were hurrying right when we sat down and started, and it looks like they've got it down.
Yeah.
It looks stable.
Yep.
But I want to clarify something that was asked: will Auburn be in Atlanta or Lexington? So Atlanta isn't a first round destination. Right. The teams that play, like if Auburn or Alabama were, if Auburn were to play in Lexington for the round of 64, win that game, win the round of 32 game, the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games would be in Atlanta.
Yeah, if they're in the South region. You can be in Lexington, like Alabama could go to the Midwest.
Right.
But still start off in Lexington because of the pod system. In the old days, they used to have a true West region, Midwest, South, and East. And all the teams went to venues in the West, if you were in the West region and you played your way that way with the pod system now that Taylor has experienced 2 years in a row, you can be sent to the same location, but in different regions. Like last year, if Auburn had won, they were on their way to, I believe, East Rutherford, New Jersey, to play in the East, but they were out in Spokane for their first two games. Makes no sense, I know, but that's where they were. While Alabama stayed out west, they went to Los Angeles and then to Phoenix for the Final Four. Both of them could go to Lexington, and then one could go to Indianapolis, and one could go to Atlanta. One could go to a different one, Denver in the West. They could be in the West and the South. So that's the way the pod system works now. I know it's confusing than it used to be, but like last year, Auburn and Alabama, same first and second round venue, but they were in different regions. They were going to go different ways in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I don't think Zach said matters what Duke does tonight. Auburn might be going to Indy. I think that no matter what happens, Auburn will be in Lexington.
I do too, because I forget. I think is it Raleigh or Charlotte that probably Duke will choose, being the number one overall seed. They'll be able to choose which region they want to go to, which site they want to go to, and they'll stay in the state of North Carolina if there is one there. That's something they've always done there. All right. So we've got rain here. Our thoughts to everyone. I know it's right now is the tough time.
No, it's not.
Back in Alabama because of the weather.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry,
because of the weather.
I jumped the gun there.
Because of the weather, and this is about go time there, and all you guys are talking about that. From what I'm understood, both teams, Auburn and Alabama, not trying to get home tonight.
I don't blame them.
Auburn is staying the night. There was a window they could have flown in and got into Auburn in time, but they chose to stay up here in Nashville. Alabama's doing the same thing. Both teams will travel home early tomorrow and then watch Selection Sunday from their respective campuses. And we've got a Selection Sunday show tomorrow, 4 to 6. We'll be at Odie's in Edgewood. So you can watch us, and we'll have an hour to talk about the bracket before it's released, and then we'll react to the bracket release together, 4 to 6, with our friends at Odie's in Edgewood. And then as for tonight in Nashville, after a couple of losses and a lot of drunk Tennessee and Florida fans, odds of me getting punched tonight. By someone.
By who?
By someone not named Taylor Corn.
I'm not going to punch you unless you do things to make me want to punch you. I would never actually hit you.
I would tell you that I did show up today because in our media area where we're sitting, air conditioning really kicking here. We're in the hockey arena for the Preds, so you've already got the ice, but the air conditioning here blows right on these media seats we're in, a couple of rows up from the court. And, I don't have a bald head. I get cold easy. So I brought a sweatshirt today, and it, of course, was blue. Nothing like Florida blue and Auburn blue.
But, it was just navy.
Yeah.
Like, you can wear navy.
I know. I mean, it goes good with everything I own. It's a navy blue, but it didn't take long me going to the media area first at halftime for an Alabama fan. It's like, Jim, is that an Auburn sweatshirt?
People are...
Nope. Is it? Yeah. But by the time Florida and Alabama were playing each other, is that a Florida sweatshirt? Nope.
Just navy.
Just a blue Nike. I just accidentally grabbed it. Should have grabbed the black one again, but I didn't want to wear it again. What about you? How was your day?
My day was good. I just can't believe that it's 6:00. I feel like I've been in a time warp.
6:00?
Apparently so. I just looked up at that clock, and it says 6:10, and I don't know where the day went because I guess it was 2 back-to-back games. But
first game took forever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm so excited for the NCAA tournament. Obviously, sucks it ended this way,
Yeah.
but I still feel like
Do you
both
do a
of-
bracket? Do you fill one out?
Yeah.
Are you good at it?
No. Is anyone good at it?
Well, I lost last year in our bracket challenge, but did I beat you?
Yeah, and I basically got punished. I don't know. Because I
Yeah.
feel like we only keep up with the 3, or I know that we keep up with them all, but I feel like we only really pay attention to. I don't know where I ended up. We could probably find it.
Yeah. Well, I would say we'll put skin in the game. You guys jump in, and loser. If you lose, you do the punishment.
I think the thing is, sometimes the safety, or I guess not what you did last year, but I think safety is probably a factor. Like Lance, y'all wouldn't have wanted to send us to do what Lance did last year and stuff like that. So it kind of,
And like you said, it did work out. You sort of got punished as well.
I mean, it was fun. It was a long day. It was fun. But no, I think that it's been a great day, and I just hope that everyone can not be down after this. I hate losing. But I don't like this dull, lifeless mood we have going on right here.
Yeah, well,
that's what I will say.
Well, I mean, I will tell you we've watched a lot of great basketball this year, and it sort of sucks right now. I don't feel like Auburn or Alabama is playing at their absolute best right now. So that does suck a little bit.
I mean, it does, but I'm not going to let it ruin my day, and I'm not going to sulk about it.
Yeah.
Are you?
TBD. Okay. No, it's not going to bother my night.
But think about how high their ceilings are. Their ceilings are so high. We've seen them. We know they have. Hey, would you feel better being in your shoes right now, or being in the shoes of a team that has not shown that they can play an elite level of basketball, and they just that's nothing to be excited about. We have something to be excited about because we've seen them play well.
I would rather be Alabama than I would Kentucky, than I would. I mean, I still would rather be Alabama than I would Tennessee. I know they beat you guys today, but I don't trust Tennessee in the tournament.
If we played again, if they laced up and played again tomorrow, I would put my money on Auburn.
Yeah.
I think Auburn shot themselves in the foot with the free throws, with the fouling, that kind of stuff that we talked about. But it is what it is. And if we were to lose, if you have to decide between losing a game here, firing the team back up, getting re-energized, humbling them, motivating them to work harder, and then they go on a run, then okay. You have to think about
the only team I'd rather be than Alabama right now is
Florida.
Yeah. What about you?
Is Florida.
You would take Florida over Auburn right now?
Yes. I don't know who wouldn't take Florida over their team. I don't care who your team is. Florida's probably better than
Whoa! That guy was recording a local live TV, and they just practiced the flames going off for the player introductions. And,
I thought that this building just exploded. I thought that we were in a fire. I thought we were about to be on fire.
Davis, that was hilarious. WSFA's guy.
Oh my gosh.
Jumped out of his skin.
Wait.
I mean, it does feel like they had it dialed up a little higher than it was supposed to. It seemed like it went higher than the shot clock.
It seemed like it was about to hit us in the face.
I felt the heat. Did you feel it?
I felt the heat, and I think I went blind for a second. That's all I saw.
I went blind for a second.
That was crazy.
Do it again.
No, well now we're expecting it. They probably were all looking like, all right, watch this. I'm gonna press this button. Watch this.
I wonder where they did it from.
I feel like there's a control panel somewhere down here. Probably those guys sitting on that table. I don't know. But I hope that everyone can enjoy the rest of their day. It's not the end of the world. And just think about for you. I'll try and cheer you up before we go. Think about how you felt after the Auburn Alabama game in Tuscaloosa.
The Auburn Alabama or Alabama Florida.
The Auburn Alabama game in Tuscaloosa.
I didn't feel bad about that one. I thought Alabama played pretty good that day.
The fan base on social media that was melting down as Auburn did after Alabama beat them at home. Just think about how fast your mood can change. Yeah. In a week from now, we could all be on cloud 9 heading to the second weekend. So I can't do I understand it, and I understand being upset when your team loses, but let's just not let it ruin our mood. Let's control the controllables. All right,
let's go. Pep talk from Taylor Corn there for all of us out there today. Selection Sunday, 4:00 tomorrow. Thank you to Vulcan Tire and Automotive for all the locations there. Trucks and cars, they'll do anything. Electrical problems, they fix it all. You think of it, they can fix it. If you have it, they can fix it. VulcanTireandAuto.com. VulcanTireandAuto.com. Mention the next round, get 15% off the tires and the mechanical work and all that. VulcanTireAndAuto.com. Mention next round, 15% off. Thank you guys for being with us from Bridgestone. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Edgewood, Odie's location. And LT and Brownie will be there as well. Come on out.
See you.